Every season, they say it will be different. This time, they might actually be right. The NBL had never seen a roster of names quite like this. Bryce Cotton chasing another crown in a different jersey. Kendrick Davis arriving in Sydney with a point to prove. And towering over all of it, JaVale McGee. 7 feet of chaos and championship pedigree. 10 teams, 1 trophy. And from those who know the league best, this was shaping up to be the most fiercely contested title race in NBL history. We begin with the most shocking off-season move this league has ever seen. The king of the jungle changing his colours. The then 5-time MVP Bryce Cotton headed to Adelaide.
There was ongoing drama surrounding the Adelaide 36ers. Montrezl Harrell on the eve of the season, he departs. They had the off-season with Kendrick Davis moving on, and once again there was expectations that we're unsure of with the Adelaide 36ers. Mike Wells, question marks about his long-term future with the organisation, but it all changes in one foul swoop. Bryce Cotton, the 5-time MVP, joins the organisation and instantly transforms the team, combined with the signing of Flynn Cameron. We all thought he was off to New Zealand. The Adelaide 36ers swoop in, pinch him, and then Xylon Cheatham, a guy that's already had a success with the New Zealand Breakers, comes in, and all of a sudden we're talking about the Adelaide 36ers as a pre-season favourite.
The defending champions, the Illawarra Hawks, they come into NBL26 with some changes. It's hard to back up after winning a championship. They lose Ulbrich, they lose Trey Kell, they lose Hyunjung Lee, and they've got to find the right pieces to get them back to that championship level. They bring in JaVale McGee, who may be the most credentialed player we've ever had in the NBL. I think this gives them a legitimate shot to repeat as champions.
For Melbourne United, 2 consecutive title losses weren't just disappointing, they were unfinished business. Dean Bickman wasted no time answering back, assembling a roster capable of competing for another championship.
For Melbourne United, there's always the expectation of winning championships, and to lose back-to-back Game 5s, it's all about how they go that one step further. You lose Jack White, you lose Ian Clark. What's the identity of this team? Well, to starters, they go out and get Milton Doyle. He's a proven winner with Tasmania. He won a championship there. He's a playmaker alongside Chris Goulding, who returns once again. And then there's some gaps they had to fill, and they've gone out to get some unknown imports in Tyson Walker and Jesse Edwards, who both are highly credentialed overseas. Jesse Edwards, the big Dutchman. We haven't seen a guy with his size in the NBL for a long time. And Tyson Walker, lightning quick point guard alongside Shea Ili. Throwing in Dash Daniels, the exciting next star, and this looks like a team under Dean Bickman that could do some damage.
The Perth Wildcats, well, they stunned the NBL when the champion, the heart and soul of their club, Bryce Cotton, decides to move on. We all thought he was going overseas, but the pain of the Wildcats was enhanced even further when he signs with one of their arch rivals, the Adelaide 36ers. They needed to make a bold move, and they did. Joe Luala-Chul, a champion in the past with Melbourne United, a game changer in the NBL, puts pen to paper with the Wildcats, and all of a sudden the Wildcats are back in the championship frame. And there was no questioning the depth of the Perth Wildcats with Christian Doolittle, who had been a sensation the previous 2 seasons, versatility personified, and the lights-out shooter in Dylan Windler. Mason Jones was running the point, and it seemed like they found their man.
Southeast Melbourne Phoenix coming to NBL26 with a strong Australian nucleus. They've got Sobey, Foxwell, Glover, Hunter, and they play a tough defensive style. They're fast, they're high energy, they shoot a lot of threes. They have an outstanding young coach in Josh King. They add John Brown III, who is another piece that's going to play exactly the way Josh King wants them to.
The Sydney Kings were coming off a difficult campaign where they did not meet expectations. They went out and got aggressive in the off-season. Starts with Matthew Dellavedova, NBA champion, who had come so close to fulfilling his dream of winning an NBL championship with Melbourne United, but coming up short. And they also signed Kendrick Davis. A lot of uncertainty about how he'd fit in Sydney under Brian Goorjian, but he has the ability to bring the best out of players. And the return of Tim Suarez, underrated star in the NBL who already had a championship ring with the Kings.
For the teams that fell short last season, Cairns, Tasmania, Brisbane and New Zealand, the off-season was a time to reset and reload. Big moves were made, and none bigger than Jack McVeigh. Back from the NBA, now $1 million man in Cairns.
It was a slow off-season for the Cairns Taipans, who did all their signings late after Summer League. Cairns fans wondering what their team would look like. Adam Ford comes back to lead the charge, and all the talk about wanting to be one of the big spenders, one of the big players in the NBL, and they land their big fish in Jack McVeigh, the NBL champion, fresh off an NBA stint with the Houston Rockets, joining the Cairns Taipans, and then the rest of the roster starts to take shape. They bring in Andrew Andrews, Admiral Schofield with some NBA pedigree, and this roster looks like it could be some fun. The Brisbane Bullets off-season was all about who they'd land as the head coach. A worldwide search, but they end up going with Stu Lash, who's been part of the Brisbane Bullets organisation for a long time. And to be honest, it made headlines in the off-season as to how it would work. Was it the right decision? And it was all going to be figured out on the court once the season began. In terms of the roster, they made their biggest move during the Summer League period, signing the former MVP in Jalen Adams to play alongside Casey Prather, who was returning, and Tyrell Harrison, who was very close to an NBA opportunity in the recent months. And all of a sudden, the Brisbane Bullets fans were feeling a little optimistic.
Tasmania do a great job in the offseason. They bring in 3 imports. It changes the way this team looks. They have David Johnson, Tiger Campbell, and of course Bryce Hamilton to go with the Australian strength that they already have. And they bring in a local, Josh Bannon, a big to pair with Will Magnay. I think they're a real championship threat.
The New Zealand Breakers, there's a whole lot of change in the off-season, starting with the ownership, Mark Mitchell coming in and bringing in Dylan Boucher as the general manager, really trying to bring back that New Zealand culture and the core that just contended for championships about a decade ago. Parker Jackson-Cartwright returns, one of the best players we have in this league, alongside Sam Menenga, who went out there on record saying that he wanted to be one of the best and most respected big men in the competition. And they start to add that New Zealand local flavour. Rob Lowe returns, Ruben Tarangi, Isaiah Liafa, and they bring in some unknown imports in Rob Baker and Isaiah Brockington. And the most exciting part about the New Zealand Breakers is the second year for Karim Lopez, who now becomes draft eligible, thrown into the starting lineup the year prior and continues to improve. And all of a sudden, NBA eyes are watching this young kid thinking, how do we get him as part of our NBA team when this NBL season concludes?
NBL26 exploded into life from the opening tip. Tasmania and Melbourne, Game 1. Milton Doyle against his former side reminded the Jack Jumpers fans just what he's capable of. This win was the first of 9 in a row to start the season for United.
And Melbourne United record a massive win on opening night. And if that is what the NBL26 season is going to be, then strap yourselves in.
Melbourne United stunned the competition in the first 10 rounds, going undefeated. They seem to have hit the import lottery. Milton Doyle, proven champion, seamless transition to United. Tyson Walker, some were suggesting he could be the greatest point guard ever to come to the NBL. And Jesse Edwards was owning the paint and being a shot blocker at the other end. All the pieces were seemingly coming together despite not having Chris Golding available for big chunks of the first part of the season.
Round 4, the Ignite Cup arrived and the NBL had a new trophy to play for. The inaugural Ignite Cup lit up the competition and the Breakers seized the moment. PJC handed out 17 assists and New Zealand put the league on notice.
First game of the Ignite Cup. It's a new format, something very exciting that we haven't seen in the NBL before. Very similar to the way the NBA has done an in-season tournament, only for the NBL, every quarter matters. Each team plays 4 games, with the top 2 teams heading to the Gold Coast at the end of the regular season to compete for $400,000 up for grabs. The most prize money we've ever seen in the NBL given away, and the New Zealand Breakers went all in to start their Ignite Cup campaign.
For the defending champions, it was a nightmare start. Illawarra's Ignite Cup loss handed them a title that nobody wants. The first defending champions in NBL history to be the last team in the competition still searching for a win.
They do not get off to a good start. The roster changes look like they're not gelling. JaVale McGee's been outstanding, though, taking the league by storm. But look, the Australian contingent isn't performing to the level just yet. Dave O'Hickey's been slotted in at point guard. His form has been patchy. The import, Ja'Cory McLaughlin, well, he doesn't work out. They have to get rid of him. And overall, they look really poor defensively.
It was all eyes on Adelaide for Bryce Cotton's first game in blue, and he didn't disappoint. After dropping 39 points on debut, he led Adelaide through one of their best starts to a season since 2001.
There was a lot of expectations around the Adelaide 36ers. How would Bryce Cotton perform in new colours? And he answered the question early. 39 points on debut. And he followed that up in round 5 with an amazing 53-point outing against the Cairns Taipans. Xylon Tootham is a human highlight reel playing above the rim, and seemingly this depth of the Adelaide 36ers were combining well, and there was no hint of disruption with team harmony.
Out west, Perth entered a new era without Bryce. After losing their first home game of the season for the first time in over a decade, the season was off to a shaky start. But with Christian Doolittle in all NBL form, the Wildcats had something to believe in once again.
Without Bryce Cotton, what would they look like on the floor? Christian Doolittle, everyone expected big things this season, and he picked up right where he left off last year, playing well on both ends. But it was Jaron Riley, the head coach's son, development player, who really made that point guard spot his own. Plus 46 in the plus minus, and he looked to be an integral part of what they could achieve this year. Unfortunately for Mason Jones, he was a highly credentialed import who had played with JLA for the Sacramento Kings. Didn't work out, and he was sent home, which gave them enough time to bring in David Duke Jr. as someone who they would hope would fill that void and help them get back to the promised land.
The Phoenix started NBL26 with a huge 37-point statement win over the Cairns Taipans, and they never looked back. Josh King found a defensive force in John Brown III, while Nathan Sobey in his 12th season was playing the best basketball of his career. The Phoenix were flying, and by round 8, they'd strung together 5 consecutive wins for the first time in franchise history.
Southeast Melbourne Phoenix were one of the unknowns for the upcoming season. No one expected to see the veteran Nathan Sobey dominate the competition like he did. Geordie Hunter coming into the mix was sensational. Josh King's identity was clearly on show. They were playing an exciting brand of basketball, up-tempo, in-your-face defense. John Brown was an anchor of that defense, able to guard multiple positions in energy and effort. He was making defense sexy again.
Queensland was hurting as the Taipans' $1 million man couldn't conjure wins on his own. For Adam Ford's men, the season was off to a painful start. But it was Brisbane carrying the heaviest burden. The Bullets weren't just losing games, they were in turmoil. Through
the first 10 rounds of NBL26, it's a struggle. They have injuries, they have personnel problems, they get rid of Jalen Adams, and things go from bad to worse. Casey Prather goes down, they lose him, and I just don't see if they can really bounce back from that devastating loss. With new coach Stu Lash there was always doubt in my mind whether or not he was going to be effective. And through the first 10 rounds, it looks like it is confirmed that this is a bad situation for all involved.
That is a massive snake bite here in Sydney.
Taipans beat Sydney Kings early on, and Adam Ford came out and said, we don't want to be the underdogs anymore. We want to compete with the big dogs.
Everyone's hopes are up. Feeling good about the season, but it crashes hard. Injuries hit. They never get Wardenberg healthy.
Jack McVeigh was the shining light, a career-high 39 points, showing that he could be that franchise player and offensive leader on a team. And then Mojave King signed as an injury replacement. We'd seen him previously with the Cairns Taipans early on in his career as a next star. Starts to show some signs that he can play alongside Jack McVeigh, and this can be a fun team to watch again.
For Tasmania and New Zealand, the first half of NBL26 was a story of frustrating inconsistency. The Jack Jumpers were struggling to defend the Apple Isle for the first time in club history, while the Breakers started the season 0-4 and were coughing up big leads in the process.
The New Zealand Breakers get off to a rough start. Again, a team that just can't defend the basketball.
Petteri Koppinen just doesn't know what's going on with the defensive identity of this team.
Parker Jackson Cartwright's doing his best as Karim Lopez gets off to a really strong start. They just don't look like they have the depth to compete with the rest of the quality teams in the competition.
PJC, Karim Lopez, Sam Menenga playing some good basketball, but it was Isaiah Brockington and Rob Baker, the two new imports, who were very inconsistent early and had fans wondering, where do we go from here? Do we want to win a championship? Are we just focusing on the Ignite Cup? They need more out of these two to help their superstars and get some wins.
The Tasmania Jack Jumpers, well, it looks like My State Bank Arena isn't the fortress that we've seen over previous seasons. They do have a legitimate star, though, in Bryce Hamilton. He's outstanding. Magnate's been decent, has an out-of-character moment where he's ejected from a game in round 5. Look, the Jack Jumpers are around the mark, but they haven't shown the excellence that we've expected from them. David Johnson, DJ, goes down with the calf injury early. He misses a big period of time. Amongst all of that's going on, they get one of the best wins of the season. Nick Marshall goes coast to coast at Kudos Bank Arena, and they get an upset last-second victory over the Sydney Kings.
Looks to restart. Poor pass picked off by Magna, and now Ben Air charging up. They've got Marshall working hard from close range. Oh, knocks it down right on the buzzer. Nick Marshall has not only knocked it down, but he's won the game.
Sydney weren't the juggernaut Brian Goorjian had envisioned early on, but the Kings had a habit of showing up when it mattered. In round 4, their suffocating defence silenced Bryce Cotton, and in round 7, they walked into John Cain Arena and ended United's perfect 9-0 start. A sign of things to come for the Kings.
They start the season 3-5, and fans are starting to get nervous. The frustration on the court starts to boil over as Brian Goorjian gets ejected for the first time in his career, and everyone's trying to figure out where this team goes from here. On the court, Cooks, Delhi, and Kendrick Davis just aren't gelling, and everyone's trying to figure out how this team can be the best they possibly can. And a big loss to Tassie entering the fever break as voices start to ask for Brian Goorjian to perhaps step aside and give Andrew Bogut the reins, thinking this team is way too talented to perform the way they are.
Bryce Cotton shocked Australian basketball by leaving the Perth Wildcats and signing with the Adelaide 36ers.
If you look at the resume, it is spectacular.
Bryce Cotton has arrived in Adelaide.
People want to be mad at me for moving teams, but one thing I can say with a clear conscience is, on that basketball floor, I gave the team, the organization, and the city, and myself everything I had. So if people feel a certain way and, they're not happy with 3 championships, 5 MVPs, and scoring titles and everything else, grand final MVPs, I can't help you, but I gave you everything I had. So whether it's good enough or not for them, it was good enough for me, and then, I made a move to do what was best for me and my family. As far as my teammates go and the coaches over there at Perth, there's nothing but love. It's gonna be cool to see them, and it's gonna be fun, and it's just like practice, except there's gonna be refs out there and a couple more people watching.
The back half of NBL26 did not disappoint, and it started with the moment the whole league had been waiting for. Bryce Cotton walking back into RAC Arena for the first time since signing with Adelaide. And while the Red Army gave Bryce a warm welcome pre-game, once the ball went up, it was game on. A stirring comeback win for the 36ers, and just like that, Adelaide's season had found its heartbeat.
There was some uncertainty about how the Red Army would feel about their hero returning in different colours, but they showed class by welcoming back with a standing ovation and great respect for what the little champion had done for the city of Perth and the Perth Wildcats. The game didn't go as expected. They gave up an enormous lead. They needed to shoot the 3-ball, and shoot the 3-ball they did. You couldn't have scripted any better for Bryce Cotton. He comes in and gets a dramatic win on his old home court.
Adelaide have won it. They have stormed their way back in and stolen the game. Wow. Bryce Cotton's return game has been historic.
That dramatic win kick-started their season. Winning 6 out of the next 7, they booked their ticket to the Ignite Cup, where they ultimately came up short, but they had bigger things on their minds.
For the New Zealand Breakers, Adelaide's stumble was their game. And despite narrowly missing out on finals, ending the season in 7th spot, their Ignite Cup final victory was one to remember.
The back half of the season for New Zealand Breakers, really tough to swallow with a lot of injuries to key guys. All their attention turned to the Ignite Cup final, with Rob Baker out with an ACL and a broken hand to Sam Menenga, which looked like he was going to rule him out of the Ignite Cup final. Miraculously, this guy turns around and says, I'm going to play through the pain. They go up there to play the Adelaide 36ers and put together one of the most exciting performances we've seen all year, win $300,000, and they end their season on a very positive note.
Unbelievable contest to the victor. Go the spoils. And the New Zealand Breakers have got $300,000.
Cairns and Brisbane, two teams clinging to hope at the bottom of the ladder. But just as a real cyclone delayed their round 16 showdown, their seasons were swirling towards the same fate. Brisbane were unravelling. Leadership fractures and injuries meant they had no answers. While in Cairns, the darkness was lit by one man. Jack McVeigh kept showing up and kept delivering. $1 million beacon in a season that had gone sideways.
They get great performances from Jack McVeigh, including a 47-point game. Wardenberg comes back off of the injury. He looks brilliant. They look like they're an improved team, but then he goes down with the injuries, with the players being out of form, and with the change in their lineup. You can see this is another season that is not to be for the Cairns Taipans.
It went from bad to worse for the Brisbane Bullets in the second half of the season. First deciding to part ways with Stu Lash, which allowed Darryl McDonald to step in as the interim head coach. But more injuries piled up, with Tyrell Harrison ruled out with concussion, and this team just looked like they didn't have enough bodies to compete. They bring in Terry Taylor, Hunter Maldonado from the Southeast Melbourne Phoenix, just to be able to get a team that could compete on the floor. And then frustrations boiled over. A fight leading to suspensions against the Adelaide 36ers, and all of a sudden, all the Brisbane Bullets fans wanted was the end of the season.
The defending champions were supposed to bounce back. Instead, Illawarra ran into a wall, and every time they threatened to turn the corner, something pushed them back. Sam Frolling's return offered a glimpse of hope, but it wasn't enough. By round 21, it was official. The Hawks were out of finals contention. Only the fourth defending champions in NBL history to suffer that fate, a stunning fall from grace.
It was a rollercoaster back half of the year for the Illawarra Hawks. The defending champions get some key bodies back, with Sam Froling returning from an Achilles injury and Dave O'Hickey starting to find his stride after missing the start of the season with an eye injury. Add QJ Peterson's play alongside JaVale McGee, who was just a monster down low, and it looked like a chance to get to the postseason and repeat as champions was on the table. In the end, they don't make it to the postseason, falling short after showing signs of a team that was probably the most healthy competing for that 6th spot, and one that we thought when they played their best basketball could actually repeat as champions.
As the defending champions began to falter, so too did Melbourne United. Slipping from first place and surrendering top spot to Adelaide, the signs of instability became clear as Dean Vickerman shuffled his lineup. The team then spiralled, losing 8 of their next 10 games and ultimately limping to a 5th place finish by season's end.
Everything falls apart. Milton Doyle elects to come off the bench, which was something that I didn't agree with. I think if you're one of the top guys, you start the game, you get out there and you perform. But they fall apart defensively. The offense looks stagnant. Dean Vickerman gets appendicitis up in Cairns. He has to miss a couple of key games, but yet in the final game of the season, in the throwdown in round 22, they defeat Southeast Melbourne, and it looks like they have found some momentum going into the postseason.
While the Giants stumbled, Perth were quietly building something dangerous. 13 wins from their last 19 games, but nobody was talking about it. The Wildcats were rolling. Elijah Pepper and Dylan Windler had become an almost unstoppable scoring combination, and through it all, Christian Doolittle was putting together an all-NBL first-team season. In 4th spot on the ladder, the Wildcats were peaking at exactly the right time.
It was a really strong second half of the season from the Perth Wildcats, who had to deal with some more injuries. David Duke Jr. goes down with an elbow injury, and then Jaron Riley, the exciting development point guard, re-injuring his hamstring against the Southeast Melbourne Phoenix, and Perth fans are wondering where they go from here. Thankfully, this team just found a way to win on the road, and led by Christian Doolittle, JLA, and Dylan Windler, they stormed home to finish the regular season, getting another big win over Bryce Cotton and the 36ers. And we're all thinking, can the Perth Wildcats go all the way here?
Sydney and Southeast Melbourne rounded out the top four and both arrived at the finals in hot form. Nathan Sobey's MVP caliber season had the Phoenix believing, but the Kings had Kendrick Davis, who was growing into an unstoppable force. With 17 wins from their last 20, there was no doubt Sydney were the team to beat.
They finished the season on an amazing 11-game winning streak. Kendrick Davis in MVP form. Just when you think things couldn't get better for the Sydney Kings, they add 8-year NBA veteran Torrey Craig to the roster. And Brian Goorjian guiding his team to where they can now expect to get to a grand final series and a chance for him to win his 7th NBL title.
Southeast Melbourne Phoenix, they're probably the most electric team in the competition. Highly entertaining, fast pace on the offensive end. They're all over you on the defensive end. Nathan Sobey is an MVP candidate at the age of 35, and John Brown clearly is the most impactful defender in the NBL. They add Ian Clark to give them that playoff push, and they're a real threat in the back half of the season to win a championship.
With Sydney and Adelaide locked into the top 2 spots and advancing straight to the playoff, all attention turned to the play-in tournament. After turning their season around and taking 4th spot, Perth travelled to Melbourne to take on the Phoenix in the seeding qualifier.
Playing games can be nervous, but not for the Southeast Melbourne Phoenix. They came out and dominated the Perth Wildcats.
They jump them. They get all over Perth, forcing turnovers, getting out on the break, and Nathan Sobey is ready for the moment. 24 points, very impactful offensive basketball, and with a lot of passion and energy, you can see he is ready to get after a championship run.
Phoenix move on looking strong.
With Phoenix's dominant win over Perth, they locked in a playoff spot to take on the Adelaide 36ers. While in the first elimination game of the postseason, it was a clash between two teams who had big expectations for their season. Melbourne were hoping to avoid embarrassment after dropping to 5th spot late in their campaign. And for Tasmania, could Scott Roth lead this undermanned team to another postseason victory over their rivals United?
The 5-6 playing qualifier at Southern Death. Melbourne United on their home deck against a depleted but feisty Tasmania Jack Jumpers.
Everyone expected Melbourne United to get it done because Tasmania, with just 7.5 available players due to injuries, really struggling to field a team, but we knew that Scott Roth would not let them lie down.
Finn Delaney was the standout with a career-high 33 points.
But in the end, Melbourne United got it done and progressed through to the playoffs.
With United overcoming the Jack Jumpers and the Wildcats holding a second chance after losing to the Phoenix, the two faced off in the final play-in match, the winner booking a playoff date with the powerhouse Sydney Kings.
Anytime Perth and Melbourne play each other in the postseason, it's must-watch TV. We've seen it go down to the wire nearly every single season, and Melbourne haven't been afraid to go over to the West and get a big win.
Christian Doolittle was clearly the best player on the floor, and JLA chimed in perfectly. That duo dominated Melbourne.
They held Melbourne United to just 24 points in the final 20 minutes and booked their spot in the playoffs in a matchup against the Sydney Kings.
The Wildcats are still alive. Next up, the Sydney Kings.
While their win over United at home was dominant, the Wildcats then faced the hottest team in the competition, the Sydney Kings, who were on an 11-game winning streak heading into the finals.
Game 1 in Sydney.
You couldn't have asked for a better start for the Perth Wildcats going into Kudos Bank Arena and taking it up to the championship favourite in the Sydney Kings.
They play a good style of basketball. Sydney look a little bit rusty because they've had an extended amount of time off. It comes down to the final play.
Christian Doolittle, their leader, he'd been so good all season, missed a mid-range jump shot to give them a 1-0 series lead, and then it goes from bad to worse as Dylan Windler goes down holding his foot.
And he's done for the season.
After losing by a single point for a historic 5th time this season, Perth were hoping they could regroup and use home court advantage to tie the series in Game 2.
Game 2 was terrific. A lot of drama. We've got some significant plays going on back and forth, but Ben Henschel in the first half was outstanding.
Shooting the lights out in the first half, going head-to-head with Torrey Craig, all before Kendrick Davis just takes over in the third quarter, giving Sydney a bit of breathing space. But it was all about McCoach Malawach in the fourth. He takes over and they sweep the Perth Wildcats and move on to a championship series.
And Sydney heading to the championship series.
The Perth season had incredible highs, but some unfortunate lows. Injuries, as it is with most teams, took its toll.
On the other side of the bracket, the Adelaide 36ers hosted the Southeast Melbourne Phoenix. It had been 16 days since the 36ers lost the Ignite Cup final. However, their newly crowned MVP put on a performance for the ages.
It was a confident Southeast Melbourne Phoenix that comes into the Adelaide Entertainment Centre after a spirited win over the Perth Wildcats.
It was a long break for the Adelaide 36ers and a lot of doubts from people thinking how would they perform after losing the Ignite Cup final to the New Zealand Breakers. Well, Bryce Cotton put those doubts to rest, having 42 points in Game 1.
They smothered the Southeast Melbourne Phoenix MVP candidate, Nathan Sobey.
Sobey tried hard with a near triple-double, but in the end, 10,000 screaming fans in Adelaide Entertainment Centre watched their six-time MVP give them a 1-0 series lead.
The 36ers take Game 1 on their home floor.
Game 2 was a sense of deja vu because the Southeast Melbourne Phoenix hosted Adelaide in a playing game the season prior.
It looked like it was going to be a quick exit for the Southeast Melbourne Phoenix, trailing by as many as 18 points. But Nathan Sobey put on a virtuoso performance.
Sobey erupted for a massive third quarter on his way to a career-high 41 points.
Southeast Melbourne Phoenix had their best third quarter of the season, delivering 39 points and forced the series to a Game 3.
The biggest comeback, and we are back in Adelaide for Game 3.
Heading back to the Adelaide Entertainment Centre for a Game 3 decider, the winner would go through and face the Sydney Kings in a best-of-5 championship series.
Comes down to Game 3, Southeast Melbourne and Adelaide. Nathan Sobey is strong, but Ian Clark was outstanding with 32 points. A brilliant performance by Bryce Cotton. He goes for 38. DJ Vasiljevic gives him 27. Those guys tore that game apart.
Riding the emotion of the passing of Ken Cole, a legend of South Australian sport and basketball.
I think his spirit was there with them. They advanced to the championship series with an exciting victory at home.
The Adelaide 36ers will play Sydney.
Brings an end to a great campaign by Southeast Melbourne. The NBL is really hard. It's hard to win games. It's hard to win series. And I think this is just another step in the right direction for a franchise that is striving so desperately to get back to the big dance.
With Adelaide clinching a Game 3 victory on home court, the stage was set. The league's two best teams, the two brightest stars, and one final showdown to decide the championship. Two best teams all season advancing to the championship series, the stage was set for the battle between the six-time MVP Bryce Cotton and emerging superstar Kendrick Davis. After coming runner-up in the MVP for the second year in a row, Davis made his intentions clear: win something they can't vote on.
It was the matchup we all were waiting to see. Kendrick Davis, Bryce Cotton, so much talk since the MVP night, and they were going to go head-to-head in a championship series.
Game 1 was a complete and total spifflication of the Adelaide 36ers.
Sydney come out of the blocks right away. Too much pressure, too much defense, and they catch Adelaide looking emotionally flat.
Couldn't have been less exciting from an Adelaide perspective.
Kendrick Davis, Jalen Galloway, and Tim Suarez dominating for the Sydney Kings.
44-point winners for the biggest win in a championship game we have ever seen.
Significant advantage goes to the Sydney Kings.
And many people are just predicting that this will be a sweep and be over in 3 games.
This place is absolutely pumping now. A Saturday night slaughter in Game 1 of the championship series at Kudos Bank Arena.
After Sydney's Game 1 statement, the 36ers returned home for Game 2 with no room to hide. Bryce Cotton was forced to dig deep. break through a suffocating Kings defense and find a way to keep the series from slipping away.
Game 2 was one of the most thrilling games I've been involved with.
The expectations low for the Adelaide 36ers, but you can never underestimate the support they get on their home court.
Another sellout crowd ready to watch their team in a championship series for the first time since 2018. Somehow the 6-time MVP in Bryce Cotton is finding a way to be effective against this physical and stifling defensive unit from Sydney, and it all comes down to the final play.
Davis is the villain. Gets to the basket, misses out. Rakocevic tips it to Cotton for the win. Cotton! Score!
What a tremendous moment here at the Adelaide Entertainment Center. Point count.
Wow. Unbelievable finish to the game. You couldn't script a finish like that.
Bryce Cotton gets the rebound, goes the full length of the court and beats the buzzer
To win it for the 36ers.
The crowd erupts. Bryce comes over, daps me up, daps Drewy up.
Derek and I were front and centre sharing the excitement of Bryce Cotton as he comes up and gives us some love.
Something tremendous that I don't think I'll ever forget. You feel like Adelaide now has a chance to win this series.
But then it was Kendrick Davis. How quickly did it turn?
Davis runs straight into Bryce Cotton's face, putting 3 fingers up saying, "I'll see you in game 3.
Pandemonium everywhere.
The series is truly heated up at this point.
Keep your eyes on this one all the way to the end.
What a moment in this championship series.
With tensions boiling over after a Bryce Cotton buzzer beater, the gloves were off. With the series locked at 1 game apiece, all eyes were on Game 3 at Kudos Bank Arena.
Game 3 and the magnifying glasses on Kendrick Davis.
How would Kendrick Davis respond to the shenanigans in the post-game of Game 2?
Well, he answered those critics very quickly and delivered one of the most flawless championship performances we've ever seen.
Kendrick Davis rose to another level.
A record-breaking crowd for Game 3 at Kudos Bank Arena, 18,373, and they get an all-time performance by KD.
34 points
15 assists.
No turnovers. He's basically flawless.
to give the Sydney Kings a 2-1 series lead. And if that wasn't enough, he turns right around to Bryce Cotton and says, "I'm here to stay. I'm trying to win a championship and go through you."
Kendrick Davis walked the walk with a historic Game 3 performance, and the Kings had one hand on the trophy heading back to Adelaide for Game 4.
Game 4 heading back to the Entertainment Centre. The 36ers, another sellout crowd looking to force a Game 5.
Coming into Game 4, very few gave the Adelaide 36ers a chance.
Game 4 was back and forth. Sydney had a comfortable lead again in the third quarter, and it looked like the championship was theirs.
For the 36ers, it was Zylan Cheatham, a near triple-double alongside DJ Vasiljevic, who hit some big shots. Isaac Humphries ripping down 7 offensive rebounds, and once again on their home floor, it comes down to the final possessions. Flynn Cameron fouls Torrey Craig with 2 seconds to go that sends him to the free throw line.
Sydney are down 2. They need both free throws with 2 seconds remaining.
He hits the first one, nothing but net.
And nothing but steel elbow in the second.
Isaac Humphries gets the rebound, and we've got ourselves the 2 greatest words in the NBL, Game 5.
Game 5.
Game 5, and we had an all-time classic on our hands.
For the 4th year in a row, the NBL Championship went to a Game 5 decider. The series lived up to all expectation, and at Kudos Bank Arena, in front of another record-breaking crowd, it all came down to this.
Game 5 was a game for the ages. Bryce Cotton comes out in the first half and has one of his all-time great finals performances.
You couldn't have asked for a better atmosphere for a Game 5 for the 4th consecutive year. In Kudos Bank Arena, 18,500 screaming fans, another record-breaking crowd, and they were delivered an absolute spectacle for one of the best championship games we've ever seen.
Bryce Cotton was brilliant, but Kendrick Davis was doing his thing as well. It was back and forth the whole game.
As we're entering the 4th quarter, it looks as if the Adelaide 36ers could do the unthinkable. Win on the road in front of a sellout crowd for the Sydney Kings fans, and it comes down to the final minute. Kendrick Davis goes down and cuts the lead back to 2. Zylan Cheatham leaves the floater short, which gives the Sydney Kings a chance to either tie it or win with a 3 heading down with the final possession. You knew it had to be Kendrick Davis, who sized up the defense, let it fly from 3, and all of a sudden the shot bounces off And then comes Tim Suarez, an unbelievable championship series saving offensive rebound to put the game into overtime.
When it got to the overtime period in front of another record-breaking crowd, you just felt that the Kings were going to have too much. The wave was going to be too much for Adelaide to withstand.
Back-to-back turnovers in the first minute allowed the Sydney Kings to use that crowd and run out eventual winners and win the championship.
For the 6th time in Sydney Kings history, they were crowned the champion.
Sydney reigns as kings of the NBL jungle.
Kings win. Davis gets his championship series MVP.
What a fitting victory for Brian Goorjian. He now has 7 championship rings.
And rightfully can take his spot as perhaps the greatest coach in Australian sporting history.
And let's not forget about Matthew Dellavedova, an NBA champion who could have gone anywhere in the world but decided it was the NBL because he wanted to win a championship.
After some heartbreaking losses at Melbourne United, Delly gets his ring here in the NBL.
A 5-game series after many thought it would be over in 3. Kendrick Davis going at Bryce Cotton and then both delivering haymakers. An overtime finish in Game 5.
What a series. I don't think I've seen a better one.
It was the greatest championship series we had ever seen. Every single year we sit here thinking, how do we top this? So what does next season have in store?